In recent years, especially after the economic downturn, the term emerging markets has drawn significant attention worldwide. The term emerging markets, originally brought into fashion in the 1980s by a World Bank economist, it is sometimes loosely used as a replacement for emerging economies, but really signifies a business phenomenon that is not fully described by or constrained to geography or economic strength. Such countries are considered to be in a transitional phase between developing and developed status. The obvious attribute of emerging markets is their rapid pace of economic development and promise of substantial economic growth. However, a universally agreed definition of emerging markets has yet appeared. In general studies, examples of emerging markets include China, India, Brazil, Mexico, and so on. The issue of emerging markets itself is quite complex, while at the same time the issue may be of great importance to a wide range of industries, such as the tourism industry. We're going to talk about the importance of the issue and the impacts on the tourism industry in the following part.
As noted before, the term of emerging market is rather a hot economic issue nowadays, and it is rather complicated and greatly affects tourism industry. To be started with, the dramatic growth in the emerging markets economy has generated a large amount of household incomes, which means the people in emerging markets have more disposable incomes to be spent, and this causes the changes in their expenditure structure of the household income. They are more willing to spend money on the tourism and the leisure activities. Along with the improvement of their educational level, their consuming concept has been changed, and they are more willing to participate in the experience-generating tourism leisure activities. However, the potential of these emerging markets is hard to assess, but it is undeniable it has a remarkable tourism demanding power in the present tourism industry. On the other hand, the emerging market is also the destination for the whole world industry of the tourism. But the poor infrastructure, service, and the less developed tourism system have limited their market powers. And all in all, in our presentation, we will mainly focus on its market demanding generating power. And in the following impacts part, we will mainly take the emerging market as the tourism demand generating regions for our background and content.
The issue of emerging markets have both positive and negative impacts on the tourism industry. On one hand, tourism income will increase. According to CNWTO, emerging markets will continue to grow and develop. International tourism receipts generated from the emerging markets have increased at a substantially higher rate than any other parts of the world. A noticeable economic benefits of the government to attract tourists from emerging markets is the tax revenue. As we all know, tax is often considered as a very attractive form of revenue generation, and it can cost very little to collect. Given the huge market potential of the emerging markets, the tax revenue can be quite considerable. For destinations that are targeting emerging markets, inbound tourism receipts can be expanded by increasing the total number of visitors, the length of stay, and the average daily expenditure. Take China for example. China is actually predicted as Australia's largest inbound tourism market with a number of about 2.1 million tourist arrivals. So based on the large number of tourists, the receipts from Chinese markets can be greatly facilitated only by increasing their length of stay and their daily expenditure. On the other hand, many researchers argue that great market potential does not always mean great profits. To gain a competitive and sustainable advantage, the first step is to identify and evaluate the total market potential, and it requires heavy investment and long-term research. Marketing is another area which requires heavy and consistent investment, including marketing communication cost, distribution cost, and so on. Moreover, many emerging markets are also attempting to enhance their business performance by developing tourism industry. So, in the near future, a marketing competition between the emerging markets and the developed countries can be predicted.
Next, we are going to talk about the social cultural impacts on the tourism industry. On one hand, the emerging markets outbound tourists with different cultural background promote the cross-cultural communications in the destinations. The emerging markets scatter around the world, which definitely bring the diverse culture to the destinations and encourages the cross-cultural communications. On the other hand, the different cultural background may trigger the cultural conflicts between the different emerging markets and also the culture between the tourists and the local communities. The different group of the tourists has its own customers, behaviors, and habits that are different from the destinations. And this may cause the instability to the local communities and also disturb the normal out of the living in the destinations. When it turns to the environmental impacts, due to the increasing educational level in emerging markets, the tourists have relatively better environmental consciousness. To some extent, the improvement of the consciousness make the tourists positively contribute to the environmental protections in the destinations. However, such long-haul travels still cause the environmental pollutions, especially transportation. For example, the airplane emissions still account for 3% of the total environmental pollutions by creating exhaust. In addition, large numbers of tourists swarm into one destination may put greater pressure on the destination environmental capacity.
I will talk about the strategies to capitalize on tourism from emerging markets. In policy part, first, encourage research and industry report on marketing potential identification and evaluation. Second, the tourism industry organization should play a greater role in working with governments on the development of new and emerging markets. Third, government can change some policies to benefit tourism industry, such as reduce or cancel visa requirements for short-term stay tourism, and reintroduce the new emerging incentives to encourage tourism operators investing in emerging markets. In action part, first, recognizing the changes in the distribution channel, segmentation development, and technological advances. Take China for example. China grants the ADS to countries. ADS is approved destination status. The status allows Chinese nationals to travel to ADS countries using a tourist exit visa, provide qualified travel organization to arrange travel. So governments should constantly review their ADS arrangements to improve outcomes on both the demand and supply side. Segmentation strategy. Tourism destination organization should take the responsibility of making practical strategies to target travelers from emerging markets such as China and India. Ensure full understanding of target markets, buying and travel patterns, holiday needs, accommodation needs, cultural difference, food and religion references to meet the expectation and satisfaction of the target market. For example, in some famous interest areas, many of the restaurants can be designed to meet the Chinese taste, attract people with Chinese and cultural skills to work in the tourism industry. The airports need to make the foreigners who cannot speak English travel convenient and stress-free. These strategies can repeat patronage, word-of-mouth advertising, achieving a must-visit status in the general Chinese population.
The term of emerging markets is not only an economic issue anymore, it widely affects a wide range of industries and international activities. International tourism industry has been greatly affected by this issue and gradually realizing the importance of it. Emerging markets is renowned for generating great amount of inbound tourism for the rest of world destinations, especially those mature destinations. This is the great demand-generating power for the world tourism industry. Normally, the BRIC, that is Brazil, Russia, India, and China, are considered as the representatives of emerging markets. And in tourism industry, China, India, and Brazil are the leading markets. Emerging markets significantly show the importance in generating market demands. Also, they have both positive and negative impacts on destinations. For Australian tourism industry, the most significant effects is the economic influence, and they also show impacts of social, cultural, and environmental influences. Aiming to tackle with these negative influences, some managerial strategies have been given, both at policy level and action level. In order to accomplish these strategies, tourism industry should cooperate with governments as well as tourism representatives in emerging markets.